I did not know her name yet when I got my hand on Tempest's bridle and felt the whole animal shudder like a struck bell, and I did not know that the next 60 seconds would decide the next 6 months of my life. The stallion had already put one man on his back in the dust of the Larkspur auction yard, and when a freight wagon backfired twice on Main Street, sharp as gunfire, he reared high enough that his forehooves cleared my hat. A boy of maybe 7 had wandered too close to the rope line, frozen the way children freeze when something enormous decides to be afraid. I got between the boy and the horse without deciding to. I do not remember choosing it. I remember the smell of scorched dust and hot horsehide, and the weight of the lead rope tearing through my palm, and then Tempest came down 4 feet from where the boy stood and stood shaking, and so did I. The yard went quiet, the particular quiet of a crowd that has just watched something almost happen. That was when I saw her. A woman in deep burgundy velvet, black gloves, standing very still at the edge of the crowd, the way a person stands when they have already decided something and are simply waiting for the world to catch up to them. Her name was Nora Ashworth, though I did not learn that until the auctioneer called it out 20 minutes later when she raised her gloved hand and bought Otis Vance's forfeited stallion for $110, twice what any sane man in that yard would have offered for an animal that had already thrown 2 riders and nearly killed a child. Otis Vance had lost the horse the way men in Larkspur County lost things that spring, to a note at the Larkspur Mercantile Bank that had come due before the cattle prices did, and the county had put Tempest up with the rest of his stock rather than let the debt go unanswered. I had been standing in that yard because the auctioneer, a nervous man named Purdy, had paid me $2 to keep the dangerous stock from killing anyone before it sold. I had needed the $2. I needed a great many things that spring. My father had filed our claim on Boone Creek under the Homestead Act back in 1867, 160 acres he meant to prove up and hand to me whole, and I had 11 weeks left on the 5 years the government required before the land would be truly mine. 11 weeks to finish the fence line and get cattle grazing the north section, and I had $11 saved toward lumber that would cost closer to 40. Larkspur was not much of a town that year. A mercantile, a bank, a church with a bell that had cracked the winter before and still rang flat, and a scatter of houses strung along a road that turned to red mud every time it rained. A pound of flour ran 4 cents at the mercantile if you paid cash, 5 if you asked to run a tab, and a working cowhand could count on $25 to $35 a month if the outfit was decent and less if it was not, which was most of why I had been standing in that auction yard for $2 instead of somewhere better. I had ridden fence and broken horses for half the outfits in the county since my father died, never long enough anywhere to be more than a name men used when they needed a hand and forgot the rest of the time. Nora Ashworth walked through the dispersing crowd with the auctioneer's clerk trailing her, and she looked at me the way she had looked at the horse, entirely without apology. "Mr. Boone," she said, though I had not told her my name and would learn later that Purdy had told half the county who I was before I had finished catching my breath. "I run the Ashworth stud farm 8 miles north on the Cimarron Road. I breed saddle stock, good Kentucky blood, and I have never in 4 years had a horse I could not gentle inside a month." She looked at Tempest, who was still trembling under my hand, and something moved across her face that was not quite a smile. "This one is different. I want him gentled properly, not broken, and I want the man who just put himself between my new horse and a child to do it. A month's wages, room and board, and a bonus of $30 if he is rideable by the 15th of October. I did the arithmetic before she finished the sentence. $30 was most of the lumber. A month's wages was the rest. "Yes, ma'am," I said. She held my gaze a moment longer than the transaction required. "Good," she said. "Be at Ashworth by Monday." The Ashworth Ranch was 2,000 acres of the best bottom land in the valley, fed by an irrigation ditch that had been dug by Nora's father 15 years before anyone else in the county understood what Colorado's new water law would mean, that the man who put water to use first held the right to it forever after, before anyone downstream, a doctrine the state constitution had only just settled 9 years earlier. Henry Ashworth had died of a lung fever the previous winter, leaving Nora the ranch, the ditch rights, and a foreman named Amos Pruitt who had run the place for a decade and who met me at the gate Monday morning with the particular stillness of a man doing arithmetic about what my presence would cost him. I did not know yet what that arithmetic was. I only knew that Pruitt's eyes moved to Nora and back to me 3 times in the first minute, counting something. I settled Tempest in a stall built better than the cabin I had grown up in, and I began the work I actually knew how to do, which was patience applied daily until an animal decided that fear was no longer necessary. I had learnt it from my father, who had learnt it working horses for the army before I was born, and who had died 2 winters back pulling 3 mares out of a burning barn on a night when the wind turned the fire faster than any man could outrun it, and had gone back in for a 4th. I carried his watch in my vest pocket, stopped at 17 minutes past 4, the hour they found him. I did not wind it. I do not know why, except that winding it felt like agreeing the hour had passed, and some part of me had not agreed to that yet. Some nights, working late in the stable with the lamp low and the smell of oiled leather and horse sweat thick in the air, I would catch myself listening for a tick that was not there, the way you keep reaching for a tooth that has already been pulled. Tempest was the first horse in 2 years I had worked without hearing, somewhere under the smell of hay and dust, the memory of smoke. Nora came to the stable most mornings before the ranch woke, in a plain work dress with her dark hair pinned loose, and she watched me work Tempest with the attention of someone cataloguing every choice I made and weighing it against her own understanding of horses, which was considerable. On the 4th morning she asked why I did not use the crop the way Pruitt's hands did. Because he is not stupid, I said. He is afraid, and a crop teaches a frightened animal that his fear was correct. She was quiet a moment. My father used to say something very like that about people, she said, and then she did not finish the thought, and I understood that some part of her had opened a door and then closed it before I could see what was on the other side. I did the same thing myself, more than once that month, with words I had rehearsed on the ride out from town, and could not make myself say once I was standing in front of her. By the 2nd week I had noticed what Tom, the old wrangler, had noticed years before and never said aloud to anyone who might repeat it. That the ditch gate at the northern boundary, the one that fed both Ashworth land and the Dunmore spread next door, had been running at hours it should not have, and that the ledger in the foreman's office recorded water use that did not match what I watched flow past the gate with my own eyes. Wallace Dunmore had been trying to buy the Ashworth bottomland for 3 years and had been refused 3 times, and a man who cannot buy a thing sometimes decides to make its owner unable to keep it instead. Before I go further, I want to ask something of you directly. If a story like this one is keeping you company today, driving, folding laundry, sitting on a porch somewhere while the evening comes down, leave it a like. It costs you nothing and it tells me you're still here. Now let's get back to Larkspur, because Amos Pruitt is about to make a mistake he does not know I have already seen. I found the 2nd ledger on a Thursday night, hidden behind the feed accounts, in Pruitt's own hand, recording water diverted to Dunmore's land across 11 months, and a payment schedule that ran alongside it, quiet and small and regular. I did not confront him that night. I went to find Nora instead, and found her on the porch with a letter in her lap, her face gone the color of old paper. Dunmore's lawyer had filed a claim that morning asserting her father had signed away half the ditch rights the previous autumn, 2 months before he died, a bill of sale witnessed by Amos Pruitt. The letter shook slightly in her hand, though her voice did not. She looked up at me. "My father would never have signed that," she said. "I know his hand the way I know my own, the way the D always dropped low before it climbed, and this is not it." Someone traced it careful and slow off an old letter. "But knowing is not proving, Mr. Boone, and Dunmore has a document with a notary's seal on it, and I have a feeling and a dead man's daughter's word, which in a territorial land office is worth considerably less than either." I sat down beside her, closer than the situation strictly required, and I told her about the 2nd ledger, and I watched something in her shoulders come down half an inch, the particular relief of a person who has been carrying a suspicion alone and finally sets part of it down. The porch light was low, and the crickets had started up in the grass past the fence, and for a moment neither of us said anything about ledgers or water or Dunmore at all. She looked at me for a long moment. I turned to face her fully. I opened my mouth to tell her something I had been carrying since the 2nd week, something about watching her work a lame colt in the rain herself rather than send a hand out to do it, about the particular way she said good morning to every animal on the place before she said it to any person, something I had rehearsed on 3 separate rides out from town, and could not seem to say now that the moment had actually arrived, now that she was close enough that I could hear her breathing change. And that was when Pruitt's boots came up the porch steps behind us, heavy and deliberate, and whatever I had meant to say went back down into the place I kept it, folded small, the way I had folded it every time before. Pruitt did not know about the 2nd ledger. He only knew that a hired horse trainer had been sitting too long on the porch with his employer, and he said as much badly in front of her, and Nora told him with a coldness I had not heard from her before that his employment would end the moment the water dispute was settled and not one day sooner, because she needed his testimony to stand against Dunmore's forged one, whether he liked it or not. Watching her say it, watching her outthink a man twice her age who had spent a decade assuming she was too grieved and too alone to notice what he was doing, I understood that I had been wrong about something. I had thought I was the one protecting her. She had been 3 steps ahead of Pruitt since October, quietly documenting the very discrepancies I had only just found, and the only thing she had actually needed from me was one more witness who could not be bought. The Territorial Land Office scheduled the hearing for the last week of September. The same week my own 11 weeks ran out on Boone Creek. I told her that the morning of, standing in the stable with Tempest's lead in my hand, that I could not stay through the hearing because if I did not get back to my own claim by the deadline, the government would call it abandoned and another man could file on it inside a month. She was quiet. "Then go," she said. "Finish what your father started. I will handle Pruitt and Dunmore myself. I have the ledger and I have Tom's word, and I do not need you standing behind me for people to believe me." I looked at her, and something in the way she said it, plainly and without asking for anything, was the moment I understood what my father must have felt about the woman I barely remembered. My mother, gone before I was old enough to hold the memory. I did not go. I sent a letter to the land office instead, asking for the 2 weeks' grace the law allowed a claimant who could show cause, and I stayed, and on the morning of the hearing I stood at the back of a small hot room in the Territorial Land Office with my hat in my hands, while Dunmore's lawyer laid the forged bill of sale on the commissioner's desk, with the confidence of a man who has never once been wrong in a courtroom in his life. Then Nora rose, in the burgundy velvet this time, and set the second ledger beside it, open to the page in Pruitt's own cramped hand, dates and gallon counts, and a payment schedule that matched Dunmore's own bank withdrawals to the dollar. 3 years of quiet theft laid out in a column as plain as arithmetic. I watched the commissioner's face change from patient boredom to something sharper. I watched Dunmore's lawyer go still. I watched Amos Pruitt, called forward to explain his own handwriting, open his mouth twice and produce nothing either time. And I understood I was watching a man stop being someone with a decade of trust behind him and become, in the space of about 90 seconds, a man with nothing behind him at all. Dunmore's claim collapsed inside the hour. Pruitt left the valley before nightfall and nobody in Larkspur ever saw him again. The water kept running where it had always been meant to run, and in the last week of September I finally rode back to Boone Creek with a check for my full wages and the bonus in my saddlebag, $30 for a horse gentled sound and rideable a full week early, and I bought the lumber, and I built the fence, and I ran 8 head of cattle onto the north section with 4 days to spare on the government's 5 years. Nora came out on the last day, in the plain work dress rather than the burgundy velvet, riding a bay mare with the easy seat of a woman who had been raised in a saddle, whether Larkspur remembered that about her or not. And she stood at the edge of the fence line I had just finished, dust on her boots and the late afternoon light turning the creek the color of weak tea, and looked at the cabin my father built and the sagging porch I had not yet fixed and said it was a fine piece of land. "It is," I said. "It only needed someone willing to finish what was started." She looked at me. "So did I," she said, and there was nothing careful in the way she said it this time. I took my father's watch out of my vest pocket, stopped at 17 minutes past 4 for 2 years, and I wound it, there in front of her, and it began to tick again, small and steady, and I did not feel like I was agreeing the hour had passed. I felt like I was finally letting it. She never asked me to choose between her ranch and mine. She just started riding over on Sunday mornings, and somewhere in October we stopped pretending either of us was going home alone. Prairie Souls will be back next week with another true telling of the Old West. Until then, ride easy, and thank you for letting this story keep you company.